Now let's talk about how sustainability is supporting also the Prysmian Group business and strategy with Massimo Battaini. Please welcome Massimo Battaini, Chief Operating Officer and newly indicated next CEO of the company. Congrats on that. And welcome, Massimo Battaini. Let me start with this, because I think that all the components of the audience, all the stakeholders, and all the Prysmian people listening, they're interested in understanding what is exactly sustainability for the company today.
Sustainability for this company is a long journey that started many years ago. And I would say that over the last 2 years, it gained much more traction and it became much more embedded in the entire organization. Of course, we started with internal KPIs. We work on the climate change, Scope 1 and Scope 2, so the emission of our plants, which, by the way, account to 1 million tons of CO2 equivalent tons per year, so they are not minor. We started with the social ambition. We started with the gender equality. I don't think we needed the ESG goals to set the gender equality, because it's an obvious objective of any organization to maintain equality among gender, ethnics, and so on. We work on training KPIs, on education, on safety. We work on the inclusive approach, and I must admit that the inclusion we practice in our company much ahead of having set ESG goals. Mm-hmm. Let me make an example. We have been building the leader that we are today thanks to the consolidation of the market that we managed, we conducted over the last 10 years. We merged with Raka in 2011, we merged with General Cable in 2018. And our approach during those two relevant integration wasn't that of imposing our values, or imposing our culture, or imposing our people in the organization. We didn't want to subdue the acquirer. We actually integrated the acquirer. We moved two companies, Legacy Prysmian and Legacy the acquirer, into the third company, which was a very nice blend of the values, the best practice of both parties, the best peoples, the best products. So we created this integration in a way that we were practicing inclusion in real life. Mm. And if you are the leader we are today, it's thanks to this inclusive approach, because we enriched our management, our product portfolio, our customer relationship, and we became a stronger company thanks to the inclusive approach. So this was the first step of our journey in sustainability, focusing on the internal impact. Then, of course, we realized that there is a world outside, and we want to be really impactful to this world. And we realized a couple of years ago that the Scope 3 emissions, so the emission associated to our cables in operations, due to the losses that the cable generates during the transmission, so you feed the cable with a certain amount of energy on the one end, and on the other side of the cable you find less energy. This less energy is responsible for the CO2 emission that you have to create when you generate this extra energy. So the Scope 3 emissions account for 300 million tons of CO2. So you see the disproportion between Scope 1 and 2, 1 million, fine. We can act on the internal target with the CapEx deployment, LED, DC motor as opposed to AC motor. So we've done all this, but the Scope 3 is what we really have to address. That's the second part of the journey.
Yeah, and there's a question from the audience on this, because we heard from Cristina this morning where you are in your sustainability trip, but the question is, how do you feel about your ability to track the supply chain, and more specifically to audit tier 1, 2, and 3 of your suppliers from this standpoint?
When we looked at the Scope 3 emission, the 300 million that we mentioned, we acknowledged that there are two contributors. One is the upstream emission, so the emission of the raw material that we buy from our suppliers. The other one is downstream emission, so the emission of the cables in operation. So in both sides, we had to act. We engaged our suppliers. We prompted our suppliers to provide us with raw material with higher content or recycled waste. So we wanted to buy material whose CO2 content was lower because raw material were made with some recycled raw material. This applies to aluminum, metal content of our cables, copper, or polyethylene plastics. Then on the other side, we realized that our customer operates our cables. Those cables emit, in theory, almost 300 million tons of CO2 emission. Our Scope 3 emissions coincide with the Scope 2 emission of our customers. So we are in the same boat. We are part of the same supply chain. And this is what sustainability is about. If every actor of this supply chain worked on both sides, suppliers on the one end and customer on the other end, to make suppliers capable of producing raw material with lower content, lower carbon footprint, and helping our customer achieving their CO2 emission goals, the entire supply chain becomes more sustainable and impactful to the world.
Yeah, you mentioned your customers. How are your customers reacting to this, and what's the impact for your business?
There are, I must admit, different sensitiveness to customers to this topic of sustainability. No? There are well-ahead, well-advanced customers which really embrace sustainability goals and applies in their purchasing behaviors, KPIs, sustainability KPIs.
And for sure, a few of them are here in the room today.
I don't recognize them all, but I'm sure that most of them are the ones that are more sensitive to this topic. Most of customers are able and convinced they can pay a little bit more premium price for buying cables with lower carbon content, cable which are recyclable, cable which are made of recycled input rate raw material, cable made in a more sustainable way. Some other are not. And this is scattered in worldwide. Now, we have a strong presence of sustainability KPIs within customer in Europe, but also in the United States, as we have someone that is lagging behind in Europe and someone that is lagging behind in the United States. But we want to lead this sustainability focus across customer. And the way to lead is not just consider ourselves the enabler of the transition. Of course, we produce cables. The energy transition implies that additional cables will have to be deployed to connect renewable sources to the load, to where the consumption is, to provide additional cables for electrifying housing, building with heat pumps, electrifying electrical cars, and so on. But it is really important that we innovate in order to provide customers with a real benefit for their sustainability goals. This is why we consider sustainability not only an important, immense responsibility from our side, but also a vehicle to make business in a more sustainable way, long term.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're discussing sustainability, which is an enormous historic shift, also in terms of economic model, social model. But how about the external condition, the current condition? We heard also from Professor Carlo Carraro this morning. Is there any condition which is accelerating and supporting your strategy, or on the other hand, condition that might come out as obstacle looking ahead?
I see the whole world really committing to achieving CO2 decarbonization. And we perceive this in real facts, looking at the cable demand that is happening outside there. We had seen an immense surge in demand in the renewable cables to connect renewable sources, which is what we classify in our project division business as submarine connection, offshore wind park connection. We see a growing demand in the grid hardening. Grid hardening is the space whereby you connect the generation with the consumption. So low voltage, medium voltage, so all utilities are really concerned about the lack of capacity in our market. And so we have tangible signs of the conversion or the transition that is happening out there. And this is not just about energy cables. Telecom cables, which are facing a similar uptake in demand, not only because of the digital transformation, but because for making the energy transition more effective, you need more digital stuff, more digital equipment to monitor the grid, to monitor the plants, to provide the digital information. So data center, 5G mobile, not only are additional trends, market trends to enable additional optical cables demand, they also insist on the same energy cable additional demand. So this is a kind of convergence between the two sectors, energy and telecom, which of course benefits a lot our footprint, because we are the only player in the cable industry offering both portfolios, telecom, data cables, optical cables, energy cable, through all the level of voltage, from generation, transmission to utilization.
And now, Massimo, how are you tackling these trends in terms of your market approach? And is innovation just about products, or what's your view of how things will change for Prysmian?
But the major things that will change is about our strategy. Now, we had invested a lot of time and effort in the last 10 years to consolidate the market and this has made this company, in my view, the best company suited to address the new market opportunity. But to address the new market opportunity, so the market trends, the energy transition, all the use cases resulting, ensuing from this market evolution, we have to do two things. Continue and may become even more impactful and effective in our R&D, in our innovation, to provide new solutions to lead the transition, and also invest in capacity. So the organic growth of this company is the new vision for the next 5, 10, 20 years. Because if we wanted to follow the market demand, if we wanted to remain relevant in the market in terms of share of wallet across all EU customers and all the others that are not here, we have to invest in additional capacity, increase our capability, and innovate. This is a significant shift in our DNA. No? We've been very focused in the last 20 years to generate efficiency, cost control, discipline, presence in the market, and consolidation to become more relevant in terms of portfolio, customer base, and so on. Now we have to leverage all those capabilities and lead the energy transition and the telecom digitalization.
All right, that's clear. But the question from the audience, and let's show again the number, is Prysmian undertaking life cycle analysis on your products to demonstrate the product sustainability credentials, particularly on carbon intensity?
Yes, we are doing it. This is a kind of intense exercise because it's not a simple calculation, the life cycle CO2 impact. But we're definitely doing it in order to assess and define how innovation can also help us provide a solution less impactful from a CO2 perspective.
You mentioned sensitiveness of customers towards sustainability. How about the way that tenders are launched and created currently? Can you give us any example of the difference that this can make in terms of taking seriously sustainability versus, just having the words?
I give you a live example without naming the company because, of course, it is confidential. We had a very advanced customer in terms of sustainability targets, which has issued no longer than 2 months ago a new tender for low voltage and medium voltage cables. So the cables that are needed to strengthen the grid. And they specify in this tender 2 options. You can provide me with a standard cable. You can provide me with what I consider a sustainable cable. Sustainable cable for this customer means 2 things. The metal content of this cable, namely aluminum, has to be made considering 10% or recycled aluminum. So our conductor, made of metal, aluminum metal, have to contain some waste of aluminum produced by other industry, up to 10% of the total conductor volume weight. Plastics of the layer surrounding the cable has to contain 30% of recycled plastic. Luckily, and that's lucky, it's not actually luckily because it was by design, that we innovated in this segment ahead of this tender. So when he came out with this request, we said, okay, here we are. We have already a solution which meets 100% your requirement. Others didn't have the same solution. So that's why innovation is a real tangible factor to capture your business. If you hadn't invested 1 year ago in this innovative segment, metal with waste recycle inside and plastic with plastic recycle inside, we would not have been able to participate in this tender. And by the way, volume-wise, this tender foresees 10% of the demand with standard cable and 90% of the customer demand with sustainable cable. Mm-hmm. And of course, the customer is available to pay this premium upside, and how much that would be, we will figure out at the end of the tender for the sustainable solution. So innovation and sustainability go hand in hand to pursue market opportunity.
All right, lastly, Massimo Battaini, the awareness is growing that the bottleneck for sustainability is also the grid. And hardening the grid will be one of the topics we're going to discuss also today. How do you see this in terms of the investment needed to harden really the grid and the industrial capacity to follow up?
There is no capacity in this space, nor in neither in the renewable transmission space, nor in grid hardening. And that's why customer behavior is changing. Customers are available to pay in advance and book capacity that we still have to build to satisfy their demand in the future. Having said so, everyone is investing capacity. We are very selective as to where we are investing capacity, but of course we are really adamant not to lose our share of wallet with any customer worldwide, in any region, any country, in any business segment. So we are deploying significant incremental investment to follow the market demand. We are doubling, basically, over the next 5 years, the level of CapEx devoted to capacity increase in this company, because we want to be able not only to enable the transition, but really to lead the transition over the next, hopefully, 30 years until 2050.
All right, thank you for this, Massimo Battaini. Thanks for the questions. Now, in 15 minutes, we'll get back with Maria Cristina Bifulco. We'll talk sustainable finance with our guests.